All right, good afternoon. I'm going to call this meeting to order, a special board meeting of the West Basin Municipal Water District Board of Directors. It is February the 1st, 2:07 p.m. And I'd ask our general manager to please confirm we have a quorum.
Absolutely. Director Alvarez?
Here.
Director Williams? Here. Director Gray?
Here.
And Director here? And President Houston?
Here. 4 out of 5 of the board members are here. And is there any public comment?
We have no public comment here in the room. And looking at the platform, do we have any member of the public would like to make a comment? Please recognize yourself by raising your hand on the platform. And do we have any hands raised? No hands raised. So at this time, there are no public comments. President Houston.
Thank you, Greg. And okay, so before we proceed, I'll say two announcements. One is that, of course, today's February 1st, so it's the beginning of Black History Month. And so we want to acknowledge that, and the district, I'm sure we will be looking at some ways to commemorate the month and its importance to our country and our society. So the years are going by quickly. It's hard to believe it's already February 1, but it's Black History Month. This is the start.
I think we should have an ice cream social every meeting.
An ice cream social every meeting?
I would not object.
Put that on the agenda for a future meeting, right? And then the other item I just want to make sure that we don't miss is we have 2 adjournments today that we'll make sure that we put into the record at the end of the meeting. Desiree, if you'll assist me with that, but Gary Glenn Polk and Jackie Hogmore. Yeah. We'll be adjourning in their honor today. Right. Okay, so we have no presentations that I'm aware of.
That's correct.
And on our action calendar, item 5A, take that first item, Greg.
Right, and so this is ratification of our standing committee appointments for 2023. And you'll see in your packet, page 3, that we have each of those committees, and they are identical to the 2022 appointments, with the exception of the Ethics Committee, where the member and the alternate are adjusted, making Director Houston the member and Director Alvarez the alternate. And that is the change from last year. With that, the other various organization appointments that we support are also listed here. No changes there. And then lastly, we have our ad hoc committees, and those are.
That's a separate item.
I'm sorry.
We'll just do this item first.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you could go ahead and read the recommendation, Greg, please.
Absolutely. So the recommendation is that the board consider ratifying the 2023 standing board committee appointments as proposed by President Scott Houston.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? I hear
Second.
a motion's on the table by Director Alvarez, seconded by Director Williams. One minor change. Everyone wanted to stay consistent, and I agree and respect that. And so just that one minor change on an alternate and a member on the Ethics Committee. And any questions or comments also from Director Gregg?
No, thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Director Gray. So one last thing, once we ratify this today, the staff can work with the committee chairs to look at the schedule to see if they want to keep the same meetings or move them around a little bit. And that way we can get our calendars established for March going forward. Really appreciate that. And with that, I'll go ahead and call for the questions. So, Mr. General Manager, if you'll do a roll call vote.
Absolutely. Director Alvarez,
Yes.
Director Williams,
Yes.
Director Gray,
Yes,
and President Houston.
Yes. Okay, that passes 4-0. So we will move now to item 5B as in boy.
Absolutely, and this will be the retirement of ad hoc committees which have completed their work, specifically the Brewer Desalter ad hoc, the desalination ad hoc, and the census redistricting ad hoc. That would leave the LA ad hoc, I believe, being the remaining ad hoc committee that will continue. And so with that said, I'll read the recommendation. All right, the board authorizes the general manager to retire the Brewer Desalter desalination and census redistricting ad hoc committees.
Great, thank you, Greg. Motion,
So move.
moved by Williams, seconded by Alvarez. Any discussion? Taking off 3 that are no longer really needed at this point, and of course, we will always entertain if we need to create new ad hocs. And so with that, why don't you go ahead and also take a roll call vote? Greg?
Absolutely. Director Alvarez,
Yes.
Director Williams,
Yes.
Director Gray, Director Gray. Perhaps you might have some other things that are going on. So that brings us to President Houston.
Yes.
So the motion carries 3-0.
Yes. 3-0. Okay, great, thank you. All right, next items are information calendar 6A, oral report on the director installation ceremony.
Okay, thank you for this item. And so this is an oral report to give you a status of where our planning and coordination is with Monday's ceremony to install our 3 directors. And so EJ, do we have
We
anyone?
should have Amy Rocha online as well as Melissa Buendia to support her in giving this overview.
Okay, thank you. And so we'll hand it over to Amy Rocha to provide the report.
Thanks, Greg. Good afternoon, directors. I'll just keep a brief highlight. So we're coming along for Monday's event. Invitations have been distributed. Our menu has been set. We're confirming a live band. And we're in the process of, getting all of our gear together to set up for Monday. There's this week, ideally by Thursday, we will be sending over the run of show. So again, just to see how the event will flow as well as talking points. There may be some placeholders that are highlighted pending some information that can be filled in a day of or whenever we secure it, but eventually we'll have to have a final version. And so that is the main thing. There's a couple of areas that are outstanding, and we're working through the general manager's office to identify if and who would provide an invocation. We're waiting for, we have on file Director Williams swearing in officer as Judge Filer. We're waiting a couple of more updates in terms of other swearing in officers, if any. And we are going to provide an update on RSVPs. We're just kind of coordinating the various avenues the information's coming in, but that'll be provided on Thursday as well. So if there are any other questions, please let me know. That way we can either answer them now or provide them as soon as we have the information. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Amy, for that update. I'll just open it to the directors. Any questions for Monday?
Yeah, I have a question.
Director Williams.
Thank you. I didn't quite hear, you mentioned something about the officer giving the invocation, but I didn't hear who that was.
I think the question that we wanted to get feedback on is whether to have someone provide an invocation. And if so, then we would need to identify who that person would be. Did we provide that to Director? Okay, we were going to actually speak with President Houston about that today.
Okay.
So Amy's maybe getting ahead of our own communication with the board president. But in any case, we're here now. And so the question really is whether we want to have an invocation. And if so, perhaps there's an individual who we would like to reach out to provide that invocation.
Let me ask a question. Did we have one in the past?
Yeah.
Did we? I just don't remember. It's been 4 years, so did we?
Yes, we did. And Amy, if you could recall who that person was, it was Reverend Joshua Canales
Dallas from,
from Mission Ebenezer Family Church in Carson.
recommend him.
I know, I was gonna say back to Director Williams, you have the floor. Well, you say, as the president, I'm totally fine with having an invocation, and I'm completely open to any and all suggestions. Which,
Josh is a wonderful
Yeah.
guys, and he's Carson guys.
Yeah. So how about this? Unless anybody else had a difference of opinion, I say you go ahead and reach out to Josh
Canales.
Canales to see if he's available. And if he's not, we'll see who else might do it, okay?
Will do. Thank you for that feedback. Okay, so that answers that question.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Monday installation ceremony? I don't have any questions at the moment, although you answered them already, because you're gonna run a show probably by Thursday, 'cause that'll just be anxious to see how that's coming together. I know that because it's a Monday night, we will have to be as efficient as possible with time for everybody, so we'll try and do our best to get out by 8 o'clock, give or take, and, any other questions from anybody?
Who are the installing officers? Or is it one person or is it 3 people?
There's gonna be, I know we're gonna have, I think, 3. So Director Williams, you have, she mentioned it, a judge.
Judge Filer, he's Captain Corps.
Maxie pilots?
His son.
Oh, yeah. We go back a ways.
Got it. And then I don't know if Amy even knows this, but yes, I just secured my installation officers, so it'll be Supervisor Holly Mitchell will be in attendance to install me. And I am not aware of status for Director Gray at this time.
In progress.
Okay.
Is online, yes.
Okay, I think we're all set. The one thing is, I guess, on the internal side staff, you'll prepare a draft of the agenda for me so we can get ready to get that posted pretty quick here. Okay.
Right, I believe your direction was to post by tomorrow.
I would like to, because it should be pretty short and sweet. There's no issue there, but yeah, I haven't seen a draft yet, but go ahead. Okay, so I think that's it. I think we're on a good pace, and I would also ask Desiree, can you send out the RSVP list maybe later tonight again? I don't know if you've been saying it to the whole board. I don't see why you couldn't, but I know you've kept me abreast, which is good. We've been tracking pretty good on RSVPs. Do you know how many we have right now, approximately? Okay, but it's probably over 100 by now, correct? Okay. All right, well, that room will hold 300,
Easily.
I think, right, Amy? Something like that.
Yep, we'll have plenty of space, I think, and then we can, based on our SVPs and turnout, we'll optimize the room so that it either feels spacious enough or not too spacious too, because sometimes you kind of want to keep the room feeling lively, but keeping social distancing options. So we'll do the layout as we kind of keep up to speed on RSVPs as well. But yes, more than enough space.
And Amy, regarding music, what's the status of our, I guess, our musical guest?
We have 2. I think we're just confirming today. I believe I think we had reached out to the suggested contacts, and we ruled out the DJ in preference for a live band. So I know we have one band available, which is the same one as the Water Harvest Festival, and they have a range of musical styles, including blues. I'm not sure if we resolved the issue with the the insurance requirements from the vendor we originally inquired about. I know Director Williams had mentioned somebody, so I'll have to double check, but I know we did plan to firm that up so we secure some lively music. So stand by on the actual result. Let me see, hold on. Yeah, waiting for insurance from one of the vendors. So I'm not sure if that means he's able to provide it or not. And so that's kind of the question mark right now.
All right, thank you for that. Okay, and it looks like our number right now is 106
Okay.
RSVPs.
Wow. So 106 people so far have RSVP'd. They've got more time to do it. And there are those who may or may not put in the RSVP. And I've heard a lot of people in my end said, maybe, I'm still waiting to figure it out. So.
Looking for a better deal.
What else is better going on Monday night? What else?
California is big on RSVPs.
All right, well, I want to say thank you to staff. Any other questions from my colleagues? I also want to confirm that Director Gear has joined us, so he is present.
Been here for a few minutes.
Yep. Okay, so next item on information calendar is 6B, and then boy, the budget process and oral report.
Absolutely. And so on this particular item, this was at your request, President Houston, to talk about the budget process as I, along with my staff, have recommended to host a few workshops. And so I have Mary Ann Rexroad here who will talk through the handout that's been provided. But if I could just speak briefly about the context, what we were seeking to do is to engage the board in the early workshops to identify the preferences and policies of the board as it relates to certain facets of our financial direction going forward. And then we could come back to the board with the budget that supports the board's preferences and policies. And so with that, I want to hand it over to Mary Ann and not steal her thunder in my opening remarks. So Mary Ann, please.
Thank you, Greg. Good afternoon, President Houston, members of the board. As Greg indicated, we prepared a slide for you, and this also should be a handout. These are is a proposed schedule that staff felt based on the comments we received from last year to address some of those issues. And also, as Greg pointed out, we wanted to concentrate on the first 3 workshops to be on those budget, we feel are budget drivers. So that would be our sales. As we know, we've had, declining sales. We want to make sure we have a discussion on that, where we should be, especially in the potable area where about 70+% of our revenue comes from. So it's a really important driver for us. In addition, we wanted to talk about our financial metrics and drivers that we're proposing to be on, I should say the first one would be February 9th at 2:00. And that's would be largely handled by our water policy department. Of course, finance will be there in support, but they do put together wonderful presentation. And so we'll have that for you on the 9th at 2:00. And then on February 17th, we wanted to talk about then the financial metrics and how that plays into, again, revenues we want to see, reserves and so forth, what our, bond coverage, debt coverage targets and things like that will be. So we'll talk about all those things on the 17th. And again, we are hoping to engage and to get feedback so we can then make sure we incorporate, what we need to when we get into some of the details on the following workshops. And the last one that's policy driven, I'll say, is on March the 15th, which right now is scheduled at 3. And this one will be largely led by our engineering and operations staff. And again, this will be going over our capital investments and related to that, the operational costs and circumstances around those, what we do, what we don't do. So that'll be discussed on the 17th. And then based on the feedback that we hope to get and direction, we plan to have 2 more workshops where we would then present sort of an overview again of all the revenues and all the expenses. And that would happen on April 12th, right now scheduled for 3. Again, this is more of a big picture so we can get an idea where we are based on the feedback we got, hoping to get more feedback. And then we would come back on, on May the 3rd, that's scheduled for 3. And then we would bring the details to all the different program budgets, to the CIP budget. Again, That way we could show what is included in that big overview and then, of course, get feedback as well. Hope is that we have our budget adopted and the rates adopted at the May board meeting. That's on the 22nd. It's not a workshop, but I just wanted to put it on here as a placeholder. That's our goal. Of course, we have one more month if we need more discussion or if we have other things we want to include time. So that would be mostly the board engagement. And on the next page, of course, it's really important for us to engage our customers, and they're always going to be invited to the previous workshops as well, but we want to have specific workshops, and that's what we historically had our workshops with our customer agencies. So right now we have the 22nd. We're still figuring out a time. We talked to Margaret this morning. She's like, it should be around lunch, like food, so we can engage people to come in and participate in that. We talk again more about the policies and priorities in that first workshop because we won't have numbers and things like that yet. But then the sometime in mid-May, hopefully when we have a more solidified numbers and ideas of where our rates and our budget's going, we would have a workshop that would cover those items. Again, not scheduled yet, but we're thinking mid-May. And last but not least, we understand that the West Basin Water Association has meetings in April and May, and so we probably have representatives go there and also present where we are in the budget and what we're thinking in that budget. So that's our thought process. But again, we're open to feedback and would love to hear if this works or not, and where would you like us to make adjustments?
Great. So I'll go ahead and kind of try and lead the discussion real quick. And the reason I put this on here was because I did want the full board to have an opportunity to talk about the budget workshop process, since not everybody's at committee meetings and you get out there. And so I see staff has already moved forward, scheduling a lot of things, but I don't want to put the cart before the horse if we're not all in agreement as to the process this year. So I'm not going to say anything further at this moment. I'd like to open up to my colleagues for your thoughts on what they proposed, or should we look at a different way to do this? So who'd like to begin?
I concur with their.
Anybody?
Same here.
I,
Director Albrecht.
at the beginning, the first workshop, I'm not quite sure. You said primarily the water sales, which is a significant portion of our budget. But I would like to see the entire budget that we're gonna have available for next year. So it's just not water sales, it's all our other revenue sources presented at that time. So we understand what our base budget is as we start the year. And we do have some significant changes because we won't have the revenue from the parcel tax.
Well, it'll be reduced, but we
Yes,
will, yeah.
so that would be reflective in what our budget would be as we look at it with the current situation.
Okay, so we can include the recycled water sales and the.
Yes, everything should be there. And so here's the budget this year, here's the budget next year, and the anticipated, water sales. I don't know where we're going to anticipate them at. Same thing with recycled water, same thing with the parcel tax.
I'll give you my perspective, Mary Ann, because I know you've all put a lot of work into this, but I think the way I look at it this year is, first of all, I think it's just there's a lot of workshops, and I don't know if these are supposed to be an hour, give or take, or not, but there's a lot of workshops. But the problem to me is they're broken out and it's very piecemeal. And I understand where you all are coming from with your strategy on that, but on the other hand, if you talk about something one month and then later another one and another one, by the time you get to the third or fourth meeting, we forgot what was the first meeting when we're really getting into the weeds. So I'd like us to relook at this, quite frankly. I think number one is this overall budget revenues expenses should be the first thing we just plain start out with. And then maybe you blend in where the drinking water and water demand is coming in. But, I'll be very honest. I don't really want to come to my first meeting just to hear where's demand of the water supply last year going into now and hear from the policy folks. I want to hear the numbers from finance. So I think actually it would be better to start out from the get-go here's where we're at and how we've been doing, and here's where we think we're gonna go next year. I think we don't even get to that till April in this setup.
Right. Well, we wanted to hear where, where we're going to be on some of these issues, what the board's pleasure is. Are we okay doing certain projects or not? Or what's a priority for the board on certain things? So that's what our thinking was, to get those priorities and be able to then put the numbers together. Because without knowing the priorities, we don't know the numbers. But if you would like, we will put together what we think they are, and we can come back with that. We can come back with options if, that's the pleasure of the board, as far as different scenarios, in that big picture.
I feel like the first meeting ought to just lay out the whole picture, right? And then you're gonna build on some of this other stuff, maybe in context to that meeting or another meeting.
We'll have to make assumptions. If you're okay with that, we'll make assumptions, not knowing what the rates will be to come up with the revenues. We have to have that assumption, yes.
Well, Director,
I think your assumptions are fairly straightforward. We have a rate, so that would be the rate. We have the bigger assumption, but I think you're gonna have a projection, which is kind of what the first budget session, as I understood, you laid it out, so this is just an expansion of it, is the anticipated water sales, which is a big component. Then recycle water, same thing. You guys have an idea of where we're headed with that. So it's very important to have that. What is our anticipated budget, given all the sources that we have available? That really sets the stage then to make decisions. There's a lot of things we'd like to do, but I think a lot of it is budget driven, and I don't want to be a situation which we're looking at, okay, we agreed to do all these things and now we don't have a budget and we have to make budget adjustments. Let's start out with what our budget is, and then we can work from there.
Knowing there's a switch in sort of the philosophy, I'm not quite sure if February 9th
right?
will work.
Oh, yeah, no,
Okay.
I'm not, I think frankly, if we're gonna look at reworking this, we might look at a different date, but not too much further back. But I do want to sort of mix it up a little bit, because again, I think when I'm even looking at this, in March, we only have the one meeting. So again, we don't get all the way till April before we really get the big picture of how we've been tracking this past year and now what we're looking at going forward. So I think that your first meeting ought to be what was April 12th. That should just be upfront to us. Whatever date we end up deciding on. And I don't know the 9th is going to be a good date anymore, quite frankly. Plus you all probably need some time to get this together, but, long story short, we're here to give you the feedback, set this moving forward. I guess what I would say would be, you probably want to have one of the first meetings, yes, is the overall budget, revenues, expenses, and then we'll have some of those other meetings that hopefully maybe you can combine some of these topics, because I think on the retail demand, don't you think we can combine that with one other topic in here? I mean,
Again, it depends how long you want these meetings to go for. There's been times in years where we've had Director Deere probably remembers, very long meetings where we
Right.
just talked about everything. And then we went to more multiple meetings, a little bit shorter, compact. So it's whatever the pleasure of the board is.
well, I would think you could probably combine at least two of these topics just for efficiency's sake. Because if it's an hour on a topic, an hour on a topic, well, it's 2 hours, or it's 30 minutes on a topic and an hour and something on the other. Because I don't want to come into a meeting just to be here for 30 minutes to 45 minutes. I would rather it be more, you put things together as a package. Just, later, I would imagine we'll come back around by the time we hopefully get to April, and you're gonna have to do the whole overall budget, revenues, expenses again, based on that feedback you've got. There's not a whole lot in here to do, so we could actually maybe do more in March if need be, right?
Yes. And on your schedules.
Yeah, of course, And don't get me wrong, I'm very cognizant of all these meetings. That's gonna be really challenging and, you know, I don't know how all five of us can be at every meeting anymore sometimes on these extra meetings. But, okay, I'm not trying to take all the air here with you guys, because I really like your feedback, but I think we should have the big picture of what we're doing or what we think. Because we've got a lot of revenues that aren't gonna be coming in anymore, and then after that, we can probably build in a little bit on some of the capital projects and some other things, but you all are laying some stuff out, just big picture to us up front. I'm listening.
Question.
Go ahead, Director Williams.
Since we have hired professional staff to advise us,
Yes.
I'm not hearing from professional staff.
Okay.
I'm hearing from two very outspoken directors. Okay.
Me.
So I would, since we pay these professionals to give us advice, I'd like to hear their advice as it fits in with what my very astute colleagues are talking about. Because I don't have that kind of experience in finance as they perhaps have. So I'd like to hear what our professional people that we've hired to guide us in this have to say. So that would be the general manager speaking up.
Greg,
Yes.
asking you your input.
Well, I think that getting the board's policies up front would help us construct the portfolio of expenditures that meets the board's expectations. And so one area of, consideration would be, as you look at our environment right now, and Director Alvarez has kind of put his finger right on it, revenues are declining in the face of conservation, number one. The standby charge is reducing as a part of the changes in that area, number two. We do have water recycling, so that certainly is an important revenue source. But then the question is, how does that stack up against increasing costs? I think we've had a lot of conversation about chemical price volatility. I think the nation as a whole has seen inflation, in very high numbers. And so how do we reconcile decreasing revenue with increasing cost? Does the board want to consider rate increases going forward? If the discussion is yes or no, or give us scenarios, then we could come back, at the later workshop with what pleases the board. We could come into the first workshop as directed to present assumptions and maybe have those same kind of conversations. But I think having a position of the board on policy will help us construct the budget according to what you're expecting. There's also the question of what programs and priorities we want to go forward with. And then there's the related aspect of staffing levels to complement those deliverables. And so if we're talking about holding the line on headcount, or if we're open to reconciling increased services with increased, staffing levels, that's an important consideration as we bring forward a set of numbers. If we can take assumptions, bring it forward and have those same kind of conversations at the very line item level. But I think the approach that we were trying to do is to get a policy from the board so that we could bring back a set of numbers that complements that policy.
Does that help you?
No.
No?
It didn't help me either, but I'm just
Okay.
trying to ask you. Let me interject for one moment. Is it? You and I have been here for 8 years and been here for even longer.
22.
And I know that staff and.
You guys been around for 8 years?
Yeah,
You've been here 22.
It's hard to believe.
because I know over the years you've done it different ways, Mary Ann, although.
You're only 23 years old?
I'll get a plaque.
Although predominantly it was usually just if I recall, 2 or 3 workshops and then here's the budget and that's it. So I know that in the last handful of years, we have asked you to change it up and get more in the weeds, which I think we're there, although this time around, I'm just not as interested in the way this was presented. I don't see the harm, and at least the first meeting should still be the overall, here it is. This is where the district stands. This is, yes, you're gonna have to make some assumptions. You know, but the assumptions probably are not that difficult between February and March, you know, April, to make those assumptions, to at least fill in some blanks for us. But we need a big picture look at this place up front that can then drive some of those other things. So I personally think that the order should be reversed to hair right there. And then maybe you can combine some of these other topics, working with the staff, yes. But, you know, I think we also have to realize that, yes, you know, we have our professional staff, but they're gonna put forward what they think is best, as they should, and then the board members, we have to decide, and we have to decide based on, yes, financials, yes, you know, what are the priorities from a board perspective and prior community's perspective too, right? You know, we just can't, it's not always just all staff driven. Staff has, it's a give and take, a balance, right, between staff and the policymakers. So all the changes coming into our budget in the next year or two, well, current and going forward, I mean, I think it's really important. We just have a very upfront, big picture, lay it all out on the table for us, the first meeting. You know, if you look at city councils and the way they do things, I mean, they don't have a lot of workshops either. They have a couple workshops with their councils. Maybe you have some public meetings for the input from the communities, of course, because they're doing different things. You know, but this really elongated process, I think from beginning toward the end, we forget half the stuff that was presented in the beginning.
Are you open to having a longer, maybe a longer workshop than each one?
Maybe not as many in some ways, but longer when we're having them. I think I'd be open to that.
We need to be longer.
Yeah.
That's good feedback.
And by the way, and I didn't mention, because, and maybe one of these should be, we should look at the time, and I'm, you know, if it's a late afternoon or into an evening even, would be potential. I mean, I don't know what the colleagues think, but, you know, we obviously do all this to accommodate our schedules, especially the working professional schedules, but at the same time, nobody else has any input as to what we're doing until the customer agents get it later, right? So I would be open to maybe the first meeting ought to be later in the day or early evening. And maybe even at the Little Plant if necessary, or somewhere we think we can get a little better board attendance, you know, because I think that we do things sometimes, yes, it's just in a vacuum. So that's my feedback. I'm open to hearing what the other board members, we need to give the staff a little bit of direction here. What do you think?
No, I heard something that it sounds like the reason we don't have a great attendance at our workshop is because of
Sometimes because they're in the day.
the timing, the time of day.
Yeah. You see these are scheduled for 2:00 in the afternoon.
Okay. I've never seen a lot of folks trying to get to our meetings. So no matter what time they are.
Okay.
So that's the reason I asked.
Ready up.
Let's be honest, most folks don't know we meet.
I don't know about that.
Well, you know, how much time are you at? Which workshop were you allowing? You know, are you like 35 minutes? Or 2 hours or what?
I remember correctly, the first three we had scheduled for about 2 hours.
2 hours for each.
And that doesn't mean we take it all, but we had put it on the calendars.
Anybody else? I feel like we're going in circles, quite frankly. I guess the only thing I could put forward, Mary Ann, would be, I think we should start with all the above meeting in the beginning. And then we can figure out how to schedule the individual topics.
Would you like us to come back with a revised schedule and we can then,
Makes sense.
think
look at it to see how those dates and times work out.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I'm just gonna look at the calendar here. FNA doesn't meet till the 15th right now. It's a little ways out. But the 9th, probably at this point, not gonna even work for my own calendar to even be present. So, you know, so that's okay, but, do this, maybe offline, we can work to start the calendar process. So that hopefully by the 15th FNA, we would have it fairly, you know, solidified. And then maybe that's where we would present it back to us, I guess. We're not gonna have any, there's committee meetings, but they're not the right committee meeting prior to that, right?
We could have it at FNA, yeah, so the 15th,
Yeah. So kind of,
2 weeks.
yeah. That seem agreeable, everybody? Because it seems like we'll probably do a little more of the work in March, you know? Okay. Very much. Anybody else? Anything? Yeah, go ahead. Director Williams.
Thank you. I keep hearing this ringing in my head here that some of us believe that we're not meeting at a time that is considered to be, you might say, open and transparent. And I'd like to hear those who feel that way to suggest a time that you think would get more support or an audience from the community. Because I have not seen it. So, I mean, I think we need to come up with that. And because I can meet anytime. I'll adjust my schedule to West Basin schedule. But I don't feel good hearing, get the feeling that some think that we're hiding something by meeting at the times that we meet. I mean, we've been meeting, West Basin has been meeting these hours for a long time. And when we change them, I'll give you an example. When we have our caucus meetings, we make them available to anyone who had a conflict. And we had, and we still don't get many people coming to our caucus meetings. And then we have, even our customers don't come and ask the kind of questions that you think they would come to ask if they had all of these professionals in front of them and decision makers there to help them. And not many show up. I'd like to know what is it that would drive them to us?
Let me ask a really quick question though. On which caucus meeting are you referring to? Not many people show up. The Met caucus
The Met
meeting?
Caucus, I mean, that's the main
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, before the pandemic, quite a few people did show up
But they didn't
Here,
ask questions.
at lunch. When we were in real time, there was good dialogue. There was good dialogue.
Not as much as
Well, probably not as much as it should have been, but there was good dialogue.
okay.
And now when we went to Zoom or Teams, yeah, no one hardly ever asked questions. They all kind of tune in and then they turn off and they leave. So I'm glad we'll be hopefully starting to meet in person again for caucus, because I think
That would be a good
it's
judge.
to what you're saying. And it is at lunchtime, so at least it's at a time of day people can potentially break away from wherever else in work they gotta be. You know, especially our customer agencies, right? I don't know the right answer all the way around, but I mean, maybe we do our big budget workshop over during the lunchtime frame of the day. Not, or, not at like 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock maybe, but
At the time that generally the city council meetings are.
yeah,
But what
Which are in
about
the
that time frame? Well,
those in the evening.
yeah, those are in the evening,
Right.
that they seem to get more folks.
Right.
Oh,
Well, maybe another thought we could consider would be at least maybe for the big budget workshop overview, that would be maybe at a later time in the day, like
We need
5
to find
o'clock,
that.
6 o'clock,
that time.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Then we do these piecemeal things along the way. I see. Great.
I was just gonna add a comment. Our intention here was to, increase the engagement with our customers. So we had 2 customer workshops indicated to bring information along the way. And then also a couple of engagements with the West Basin Water Association to promote what we're doing as well. And then, just the thought, we could potentially do additional, maybe road shows. If we attend certain community group meetings that you all would recommend. And so we could bring the information to the public to provide an opportunity for them to give feedback if the board would like to have that additional public engagement. I think last budget cycle, I think the idea of advertising in the newspaper for the final budget hearing is something that we can do. Put it on our website, press release if we want to go that far to advertise the final decision over the budget. And so if the public engagement piece is, something that we want to maximize, there's probably a number of ways to do that.
I know we've been talking a lot.
Yeah,
And
and time is
probably in circles in some way, but I think you got enough feedback to try and come back by the F&A committee with some new ideas. And then offline, we can work with directors to figure out maybe some schedule options so you can start getting things on the calendar. I will tell everybody that with the volume of these meetings, I may not be able to show up to every meeting because it's a lot of meetings. And I don't want to belittle the fact that they need help. And obviously, if you got a quorum, you can hold meetings, okay? But just know up front that this is a lot of meetings. Top of everything else we have to do with board and committees and in our own lives.
But they're not all your own.
Oh, no, I understand, Director. So anyway, okay, well, with that, let's, you'll come back at F&A and give us some ideas. And Director Alvarez.
Just 2 comments. The general manager mentioned outreach. The one thing that really should be on the website is all the budget meetings, however many we decide to do. And then the second thing I was gonna say, I do agree. I'd rather have less meetings than more. We already have a lot of meetings. So some of these budget workshops as currently outlined can probably be consolidated. And my preference is for less, not more.
Yeah. And on that note, I mean, look, we could always do a Saturday if we had to, or a Friday where we have more time and people have, it's not quite as crazy sometimes. So let's be open-minded about it. I really just want to get through it as quickly as possible and kind of that big shebang, but, I don't want to diminish that we need to get in the weeds on some things, so it's a tough balancing act here, but right now, this is a lot of meetings. Yeah, so, all right. Thank you, Mary Ann. Okay, with that, that is the end of this item. So we're going to go ahead and recess into closed session. Closed session per government code section 54957, public employment, general counsel. That we're Okay, we are back from closed session and let me report out. Board has direction that it will pursue. That we are going to move on to the last items of the agenda. So with that, director's comments or future agenda items.
Do we have anything this week?
What was that?
Do we have anything on our agenda for this week?
I believe this is
This
the
is
last
it. This
meeting.
is the last meeting for this week.
Thank God. And now Monday night you have a meeting, okay? So be there or be square.
Be the regular monthly board meeting?
We're gonna do that one there too while we're at it. No, it's
No, Monday
installation.
night
day.
is the.
No,
Installation.
Installation,
Carson Community Center.
I think I'll go.
Monday night. We're gonna have.
And we do have the Jazz Compo's gonna be there?
I don't know. She didn't,
They're working on
I'm
something.
working on it, yeah.
Oh,
Who's
They're
that?
working on something.
Who's that?
Director Williams has a great little combo. They can play at these events. We've used them in the past. It's been a long time. I'm assuming it's the same
That's
group.
not the same group.
Oh, but it's similar.
Very, very good. Bonds.
Well, from what I'm hearing and from the oral report we had earlier, it sounds like staff has got some these things
Yeah, so
cooking. for
either
us.
way,
Um,
you'll have someone.
Do anybody else, does anybody have any other comments or progress?
No comments.
Okay. Director Williams,
No, thank you.
okay. Hello, I have no further comments either, and I just want to make sure that we adjourn today's meeting in memory of two who have passed, Gary Glenn Pope and Jackie Hawthorne.
Jackie.
My understanding is that Gary is Rosa Russell's brother, I believe. Yes. So that's the information I was given. So we're going to adjourn today in their honor. The next scheduled regular board meeting is February 27th, 2023. And with that, we're adjourned.